So you've probably seen the news coming out of Thailand recently. This whole investigation into potential vote rigging during the Senate selection.
Yeah, definitely making headlines.
We were hearing about summonses being served, and some senators mentioned, like Alongkat and Chukchai, they've responded.
Right. Alongkat apparently questioned the DSI's authority, that's their Department of Special Investigation.
Kind of like their FBI, yeah.
Exactly. And said he hadn't received anything. Chokchai said he was away, denied involvement, but seemed like he might cooperate if the Election Commission summoned him.
The EC.
It's, interesting how these current events really throw the complexities of the Thai Senate into sharp focus.
Totally.
It's not just about these specific allegations, is it? It makes you look at the whole setup. How are these senators even chosen?
Exactly. So for this deep dive, that's what we're going to unpack. The intricacies of the Thai Senate. We'll look at the different ways senators have been picked over the years, why those methods changed, and the big questions about their role and, well, who they really represent.
Right. And to really get into it, we've got some good source material. The main one is a research paper, An Appropriate Model and Method of Senator Selection for Thailand.
Sounds comprehensive.
It really is. It looks at the history, compares Thailand to other countries, and analyses what makes these selection models work or not work.
And we're also looking at recent news, right? Like those Bangkok Post articles on the EC and this vote rigging probe.
Yep, keeping it current. Plus, there's some analysis from taijo.org digging into the problems with the current selection method.
Okay.
And we'll touch on pieces from Fultro and 9-Line 2 just to get some different takes on the new Senate.
So the goal here really is to give you a deeper understanding than just the headlines, right?
Exactly. Provide the context, look at different viewpoints so you can kind of grasp the underlying issues. Why is this happening now?
Get you up to speed, quickly but thoroughly.
Yeah, understand the why.
Okay, let's dig in then. To really get a handle on today, we kind of need to look back. How has senator selection changed over time? Our research mentions the 1997 Constitution. Fully elected senators.
That's right. All elected. Which, sounds democratic on the face of it.
Seems like it.
But interestingly, the paper points out some unintended consequences. Big one was political influence creeping into the Senate. Massively.
How so?
Well, they even started calling it the husband and wife council. You'd get someone in the House and their spouse or relative would pop up in the Senate, often using those, local political machines.
So not quite the independent check it was meant to be.
Not really. The paper suggests this actually made reviewing laws less effective.
Right.
And some analysts worried about a potential parliamentary dictatorship emerging, partly because of Thailand's whole patron-client social structure. Connections matter a lot.
Okay, so that direct election model had its flaws. It wasn't delivering that independent oversight.
Pretty much. The senators couldn't always act as independently as planned.
So what did they try next? The paper mentions a mix. Some elected, some appointed.
Yeah, that was the next phase, a hybrid model. Trying to bring in some expertise, maybe dilute that direct political influence.
Did it work any better?
Not entirely. The fundamental question kept coming up. Where does their power actually come from? Who are they accountable to?
Still fuzzy.
Yeah, concerns remained about how well they were doing their jobs.
Which brings us then to the 2017 Constitution. And this was big change, right? Fully appointed Senate, 250 members.
Huge departure. The idea, interestingly, was for the Senate to be a sort of mentor council.
A mentor council.
Yeah, bring together diverse experts, people who could offer guidance, ideally free from party politics. They even opened applications to the public, dividing senators into expertise groups.
Okay, so expertise over direct election, but appointed. That raises questions about representation, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That's the core tension, isn't it? Balancing that desire for expert, maybe apolitical guidance with the democratic principle of representing the people, it's a constant struggle.
So the goal was a wide range of experienced pros.
That was the aim.
Yeah.
And they put in a 5-year term limit, mostly single term.
Okay.
But there was this special 5-year transitional period initially where this appointed Senate had, well, quite a bit of power.
Like what?
Overseeing national reform, national strategy, and the really big one, they got to help choose the prime minister.
Ah, yeah. I remember that being controversial.
Hugely controversial.
Yeah.
The research paper notes it drew major criticism, especially from political parties and the House. People tried to amend that part.
I bet.
And the paper also mentions a possibility floated back then that after those initial 5 years, maybe it would shift back towards an elected body, something like the old Economic and Social Advisory Council.
So it's always been kind of in flux, this whole senator selection thing.
Constantly evolving, yeah.
Okay, so we've seen these swings. Elected, appointed, mixed. Let's step back. Why have a Senate at all? Our paper quotes Wisanu Kriyingam way back in '87, outlining the core ideas. What were they?
Right. Wisanu laid out a few key justifications. First, there was this element of distrust towards the House of Representatives, worry that the majority could just railroad things through.
Senate's a check on that.
Exactly. Second, it was meant to balance or inhibit the House, again, stemming from this idea that maybe the House wasn't always efficient or thorough enough, needed a break, perhaps.
Like a mandatory second look.
Sort of. Third, scrutinizing laws for accuracy, making sure they're well drafted. Fourth, providing political opportunities for certain groups, basically distributing power, balancing interests.
Interesting. Power distribution.
And finally, ensuring representation from different regions, different localities.
Those are pretty hefty jobs. So what actual powers do they have to do all that? The paper gives examples.
They have some significant, if indirect, clout, especially over the judiciary. The Senate considers, advises on, and approves appointments and dismissals for top legal jobs.
Like who?
Supreme Administrative Court judges, the Attorney General, the Anti-Corruption Commission members.
Wow. Okay. So they don't rule on cases, but they pick the people who lead these vital institutions.
Precisely. And the paper argues this inevitably shapes policy within those bodies. So yeah, indirect influence on the direction of justice.
Makes sense.
They also weigh in on draft laws, specifically about the judicial process itself, things like constitutional court procedures, ombudsman rules, anti-corruption laws, these organic acts.
Right, the laws that set up how those institutions function. What about regular lawmaking?
That's still a core function, like in many upper houses, proposing laws, scrutinizing bills passed by the House.
So they review everything.
They play a key review role. The paper mentions specific examples like the Justice Fund Act, the Corruption Court Act, bills they really dug into. Sometimes they even deliberate jointly with the House.
And what about this audit council role the paper talks about? Sounds important for accountability.
It really is. It's about checking how legislative and executive power is used, preventing that parliamentary dictatorship risk we mentioned.
How do they do that?
Two main ways, according to the paper: setting up special committees to investigate government actions, and raising topics for discussion, bringing issues into the open.
Like a watchdog function.
Kind of a quasi-inspection role, yeah. Crucial for holding power accountable.
Okay, so Thailand's tried different paths. How does that stack up globally? Our source looks at the US, France, Japan, England, Malaysia. What's the big picture?
Well, broadly, you see two main models. Elected, like the US, France, Japan, and appointed, like England and Malaysia. But the details within those models vary a lot.
Give us a flavor of the elected ones.
Sure. The US is direct election, 2 senators per state. Simple as that. France uses an electoral college of local officials. Japan's interesting. It's 2-tiered. Some elected by region, like local MPs. Others by national proportional representation based on party votes.
Okay, different flavors of elected and appointed.
England's unique. Historically, with hereditary lords and bishops, kind of that council of bureaucrats idea.
Wow.
Malaysia's a mix within the appointed category. Some chosen by state assemblies, others appointed by the king to represent the states.
So really no single right way to do it.
Not at all. And the research really stresses this. These models fit each country's own history and politics. You can't just copy-paste one onto Thailand, especially with its own tricky past.
Right.
The paper suggests, ideally, all Thai senators should come via the same method and have some link to the people.
Consistency and connection.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Now, the paper also talks about what makes senator selection successful in Thailand. What factors matter most?
It points to 3 main things. First, the candidate factor. Ideally, you want people free from party control.
Which is tough in practice.
Extremely tough, the paper notes, which might make elections tricky for Thailand. Age is another point, wanting people over 40 for experience. But then there's the downside of the 1-term limit, potentially losing good experts.
Ah, right. Experienced, but maybe not for long. What's the second factor?
The process factor. Current election methods, deemed unsuitable. There are also doubts about the nomination committee. How honest is it? How connected to the people? And this idea of recruiting from 20 expertise groups. Questions about whether those groups are the right ones, if they cover everything. Plus, should selection be within groups or across groups?
Lots of process questions. And the third factor?
The public factor. People want some say, even if it's indirect via a nomination committee. But crucially, the public needs to understand what senators do, how they differ from MPs,
Why is that understanding so important?
so they can rationally accept whatever selection process is used. If people don't get the role, they won't trust the process.
Okay, which leads us nicely to the current system under the 2017 Constitution. That taijo.org article, FULCRUM, 9-line. They seem to have quite a few criticisms. What are the main complaints?
They're pretty widespread. A basic one is just the democratic inconsistency, fully appointed versus elected.
Fundamentally undemocratic, some would say.
That's the argument. There's also an issue with how the cross-selection between professional groups actually worked or didn't work in practice.
Phil Sierra called the selection process itself convoluted, didn't it? All those levels of voting.
Exactly. District, provincial, national. And that complexity, they argue, opens the door to elite capture, letting vested interests take over.
And the criteria to even become a candidate.
Seen as potentially exclusionary, might sideline younger people or those without deep pockets. Fultier also hit on how the professional groups themselves were classified, suggesting imbalances.
So the worry is it's not really creating a representative body.
That's a major concern, potential for gaming the system, candidates picking groups strategically, not based on real expertise.
Just where they think they can win.
Potentially. Both Fultier and 9-line warn this could lead to a Senate full of well-connected, well-resourced people, not necessarily the most competent.
9-line also mentioned that many new senators weren't well known, and there was that case of a top vote-getter with questionable credentials.
Yeah, that highlighted the lack of a mechanism to really filter for ability or public interest, when candidates mostly vote for themselves and each other.
Accountability to the public goes out the window.
That's the fear. Plus, worries about vote collusion, buying support, echoes of past problems.
So these analyses suggest the current model could become a kind of covert competition based on connections, not competence.
Exactly. Risking undue influence, undermining the whole point of an impartial Senate.
Which sadly loops us back to the start, the recent news. EC downplaying reports, then the Bangkok Post saying summonses were issued for vote rigging, naming Alongkot and Chukchai.
Right. And these events aren't happening in a vacuum. They directly reflect these exact concerns people have been raising about the selection process's integrity.
The money trails reportedly found. More summonses expected.
It just fuels the whole debate. Is the 2017 approach working? Is it legitimate? You see the senators' reactions, questioning authority, denying things, but maybe cooperating later. It shows the immediate fallout.
So, given all this history, the goals, the criticisms, what does our main research paper suggest? How could things be improved?
Well, the research is pretty clear. The 2017 Constitution needs amending, specifically Article 107 and related laws.
Okay. What's the core principle for reform?
Strengthening the link between senators and the people. That's key. They push for a consistent selection method for everyone.
And the type of people.
Needs to be experts in fields genuinely important for national development. But, crucially, minimizing political party influence. That old chestnut.
Easier said than done, maybe.
Always. The paper suggests looking at models with public input in nominations or appointments by people connected to the public, maybe selection within expert groups, and, interestingly, allowing senators to serve more than one term to keep that expertise around.
Retaining competence.
Exactly. And finally, just hammering home the need to educate the public about what senators actually do and how they're different from MPs.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've traced the Thai Senate through elected, mixed, and now fully appointed phases. We know its intended roles, checking the House, scrutinizing laws, balancing power are really important.
But the current appointed system, as we've heard from academic analyses and seen in these recent allegations, faces serious questions about representation, legitimacy, and accountability.
Clearly lots of different views on how to build an upper house that actually works for the Thai people.
Which really leaves us with a big question for you, the listener, to think about. Given all these historical challenges, the controversies, what principles should guide the design of the Thai Senate? How can it truly serve the people and strengthen democracy there?
Is the current model just broken? Or can it be fixed with the right reforms to tackle these deep issues of representation and accountability?
Yeah, it's a tough one. No easy answers. And how Thailand navigates this will surely have big implications for its democratic future.